A very warm welcome for this session on event handling model. Okay, so till now we have been familiar with all the concepts of how do we design user interface screens using AWT components. Okay, so AWT stands for Abstract Windowing Toolkit. So now using AWT components, since you have already designed some of the components on the screen, now what are the various components that you know? Text fields, buttons, radio buttons, then checkboxes, etc. So all these things you have created on the screen. Now only point that we are now going to study about is how do we program these components to work according to the user's goal. Okay, so now I mean to say that suppose you have designed some form. Okay, so let me show you what is a form. Okay, so suppose you have designed a form like this with some buttons 1 2 3 4 5. So since you are familiar with these OK button, cancel button, etc., like that you have various buttons, right? Now among all these buttons, suppose if you click on button number 1, there is certain activity or action that has to be performed. Okay, your target is that the data need to be saved, the bill has to be computed, your ticket need to be booked, right? So you are checking for PNR inquiry, you are checking for availability of a seat, right? Like that, the target can be anything. The action or activity what you want to accomplish when a user clicks on the button, maybe something, but in order to accomplish that task, you are handling the user's activities or actions on the screen using various buttons like this, right? Using various event handling techniques. Okay, so now let's focus on what do we understand or what do we mean by this. Okay, so what is the event object now? In this case, object is a button. Okay, button is an event object where the user is going to click on the button. That means that is the action that the user is going to perform. Okay, so as a result, whenever user clicks on the button, your program should listen to the event, wait for the event to occur, wait for user to submit his details and then click OK button or submit button. Then you have to capture that action. Okay, then your program has to capture that action and process the event accordingly. Now that process we are going to now learn how do we handle these events. Okay, so now you have to ensure that your program is having some listeners. You should engage some listeners in the program. So now let's take the example of the button. Button is the event source. Okay, when the user clicks on the button, there is a listener that you have to employ in the program. The listener will actually handle, or the listener will actually process your action through one method called as action performed, which is a predefined method. Now how do you attach these event listeners to various events? Okay, so depending on the type of component that you have, suppose if I have a component like what is that component like, let me say, yeah, now this is a component listener, this is a text listener. Now let me say that there is a text field. Okay, for all the text fields I will have it text listeners. Okay, all the text fields are going to have this text listener. Okay, text fields. Then all the radio buttons. Okay, text field. Then the radio buttons are your combo boxes, etc. Check boxes will have item listener. Then focus listener, action listener. Action listeners are all your text buttons, your button. Basically first we will study about buttons. Okay, so all the buttons you are going to have, I mean all the events that are generated by the button components are handled by this action listeners. Okay, then you have keyboard listeners, key listeners, window listener, listener, mouse motion listener. Your gaming, basic gaming activities that you do, you will require mouse motion listener. Okay, so for every program you should attach these event listeners with an event source. Okay, So let's now have a little details about what are they with an example. Now let me start with the first example. I'm taking one button. So actually this action listener can be associated with four types of sources. That is not only button, but your list box can have this action listener, your text field can also have, your menu items can also have, because you click menu items, you know, right? File, edit, on the menu bar you have some menu items. So if you click on these menu items also, same type of action listener interface is going to come into picture. Now what do you mean by an interface? Interface, you have some abstract methods where the method will be the body of the method or the method definition is given in the program whatever is implementing this particular interface. Now this action listener is now an interface, a predefined interface in Java. I repeat again, in Java, this action listener, whatever I was talking about, the action listener is employed in the form of an interface. And this action listener interface is going to have a method implemented inside the program whichever is implementing this interface. Okay, now roughly you can see the definition of this action listener. What is the definition of the action listener? Interface action listener, public void action performed, okay, and then action event small e. Okay, now that's about action listener interface, and in this you have your event source, that is button, list, text field and menu item. Now let me show you with one example. I think by this example you will have clarity on how do you handle these events. Okay, so let me create a button called as hello world. Let me show you the output first. Okay, and after you have created the button called as hello world, then you can actually give some events to the button. Okay, first just like you write your hello world program, your AWT components you need to import using java.awt.star, then awt.events, since we are using event handling mechanism in our program, and the main method. Okay, you are creating a button, okay, frame, and then set the size of the frame, then add one button to the frame, add a button to the frame. Now the button whatever I am creating is HW, hello world will be printed on that button, and this button is added to the frame. So I'll say f dot add is a method which will add this button HW. Now this HW button, I need to engage one action listener. So step 1, you should add action listener. This is a method. So A should be small letter, then action listener A and L are capitals. Okay, I repeat again, HW is my source, event source or the component, and this component dot add action listener. So that means add capital A action, L for listener. Add action listener, and within brackets you write new blank space action listener, capital A capital L, action listener. Okay, and here you can see the variety in syntax that I have not closed the parenthesis. Add action listener is a method. Okay, and I have not closed the parenthesis. Where is the parenthesis closed? Here it is closed. So till that point I write new action listener. Okay, and inside the new action listener I am writing the constructor also inside this and the method also inside this. I will write void action performed action event E. Okay, according to the syntax I write this, and if I click the button it should exit the frame. So that's why I write system.exit of 0. What is the target or goal? I'm not saving anything, I'm not adding anything, I'm not calculating anything. If you want to do all those calculations, etc., you write the code inside this part. So this is the location exactly where you have to write that code for performing some action. Okay. So as a result of clicking the button. Okay. So now let's observe. Yeah. So you write whatever you want inside the action performed event. Okay, this is second type of writing the program. So inside the program, whenever you write implements action listener, add action listener, and then write action performed. That simple is the program. Okay.